if they have a vote this spring for independence, is that binding? Does Denmark just let that happen? What's the timetable here? It's the point where they might be independent.
Let me just comment on that,
Yeah,
Mark,
yeah.
because Carla is massively oversimplifying the process by which Greenland could become independent. Even if they do have this referendum that says that they would like to go independent, we obviously know there have been independence movements around the country. It's going to require a considerable amount of negotiation between Copenhagen and Nuuk in order to have that actually be binding and occur. In addition,
Sorry, let me just interrupt just for
yeah,
factual clarification for me to view.
yeah.
What's the law that governs? Is it Danish law? Is it Greenland law? Or do they have on the books that, like some states in America do, the option of referendum? Or
It's
is this ad hoc? How is this happening?
Well, it's Danish. It's Danish law is the answer to the question.
Yeah.
I,
And so
but
and so under Danish law, if they get it on, if it has to be the legislature put it on the ballot, how does it get on the ballot?
the Copenhagen legislature or the Nuuk legislature?
Either one or both.
I think you can just call a referendum, and I think the way so there's a few different pieces here though. So that remember this: that Greenland is already partially independent. So it
They're
is
semi-autonomous.
they're
Yes.
semi-autonomous. So in essence, no, it's a little bit. I consider it. The way I describe it right now, it's a combination. They are less American than a U.S. state. That is meaning they are less connected to Copenhagen than a U.S. state, but they are more connected to Copenhagen than, say, a U.S. territory, than Puerto Rico or Guam. Like, for
Because
example,
they were a colonial nation. They were owned by the king.
well, but my point is, I mean, democratically, meaning they have voting interest. Actually, an average the individual Greenlander has a larger representation in Copenhagen than someone who lives in Denmark. Meaning they have two members of parliament for
Yeah.
55,000
But
people.
again, I just want to pin down this. If there's a spring referendum, is it clear that it would be binding, or that's to be determined?
So the referendum happens, then they're having elections for a new government this spring as well in Greenland. If they vote to go independent, it will then go to the Danish parliament, and the Danish parliament will have to vote on it.
That's right.
And if
My point in that,
yeah.
and then my point is that it becomes extraordinarily complicated because the only part right now there's several different parts, right? So the Denmark still controls the national security and the foreign policy of Greenland. The domestic issues are controlled by Nuuk, but that's still, they say, the legal system, the policing system, that is still Danish. So if there was independence, Carla sort of mentioning that the independence is going to happen tomorrow and it's just going to happen. Were this to happen, it would probably be a process that would take years. The
Yeah.
idea that it would happen by the spring is simply not realistic.
Ambassador
Not only
Sands,
that, I mean, I do think there's a scenario where they become like Canada is to the United Kingdom, meaning sort of like a Commonwealth country, because frankly, the royal family in Denmark is actually extremely popular in Greenland. So there could be a relationship like that. But again, this is all extremely complicated, centuries, frankly, of history that they need to unpack. Not all healthy, of course, but centuries of history that would take time to try to sort through.
Ambassador Sands, do you agree with that this would take years to happen?
Well, I think we're working at the speed of Trump, so I'm not sure that what the
Okay.
timetable